Hello students, welcome back to the lesson on degrees of comparison. In this section, we will revise the earlier lessons on rewriting sentences using different degrees of comparison, that is, without changing the meaning. And we will also look at the common errors that are made when we use the degrees of comparison. So, when it comes to rewriting sentences using different degrees of comparison without changing the meaning, we need to be clear about the structure of each one of these sentences. The superlative sentence has the sentence in which the superlative form of the adjective is used will have the structure, the definite article the plus the adjective with its est or superlative form. For example, the Amazon is the largest river. Largest is the adjective in its superlative form, and it is always preceded by the definite article the. The Amazon is the largest river. Now, when we rewrite the sentence in the comparative form, the adjective largest will become larger. Largest is the superlative form, larger is the comparative form. So, larger has to be followed by than. So, now that we have larger than in position, we can frame the rest of the sentence. We begin with the same subject and the verb. The Amazon is. Then the adjective larger than. What should come after that? It is larger than. Naturally, it will be all other rivers. So that is the comparative form. The Amazon is larger than all other rivers. Now the same sentence in the positive form will take the adjective large. Largest is the superlative, larger is the comparative, large is the positive. And when we need to retain the same meaning, this adjective has to have the word as before and after it. That is the structure. As plus adjective plus as. That is the structure of the positive sentence. And to retain the same meaning, you need to use the sentence in the negative. So, no river is as large as the Amazon. You can't write the sentence beginning with the Amazon, because we need to convey the sense that the Amazon is the largest river. So we can't say Amazon is as large as the other rivers. That would convey the wrong meaning, or it is not the original meaning that we are expected to convey. So, no river is as large as the Amazon. Well, as you know only too well, practice is the best way to perfect any art, and the degrees of comparison would be no exception. Try to perfect the art of using the different degrees of comparison by practicing with as many different kinds of adjectives and adverbs as possible. Remember to use the correct structure of each sentence for the different situations. The positive will take the structure as plus adjective plus as. The comparative, the adjective with the er or more form followed by than, and the superlative preceded by the adjective with the est form or most plus adjective. So do as many exercises as possible and you will perfect this art. Let us now take a look at a common usage of the comparative degree. When a quality increases or decreases in one part of the sentence, we can indicate the relative increase or decrease of the quality in the other part of the sentence using the comparative degree. For example, the sentence, the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. We can see how higher and cooler are parallel to each other in this sentence. The higher you go, the cooler it becomes. People think that the older we grow, the wiser we become. Similarly, the comparative can also be used to indicate the gradual increase of a particular quality. For example, the days are getting warmer and warmer. The kids these days are getting smarter and smarter. Let us now take a look at the common errors that creep into the use of the different degrees of comparison. The most common among these would be the use of er and est as suffixes to form the comparative and superlative degrees of adjectives that have more than one syllable. We know that in monosyllabic adjectives, that is, adjectives that have one syllable, the comparative and superlative degrees of comparison are formed with the addition of the suffix er for comparative and est for the superlative. So you have an adjective like big, for example, big, bigger, biggest, large, larger, largest, small, smaller, smallest. However, when the adjectives have more than one syllable, that is, if they are bisyllabic or have more syllables, we cannot add er or est to form the comparative and superlative degrees. On the other hand, we must add more and most. So, in a word like beautiful, we cannot, or it is wrong to say beautifuler or beautifulest. The correct comparative and superlative degrees of beautiful, the adjective beautiful, are more beautiful and most beautiful. There is an exception to this in the case of some words, especially those which end in the letters Y or ER, that is, words that end in the phoneme, the sound E or A. For example, easy. It ends in the letter with a letter Y. The sound there is E. Easy. So easy is easier and easiest in its comparative and superlative forms. Pretty. The letter Y is what it ends with. The sound is E. So pretty, prettier, prettiest. The word clever ends with the letters ER. The sound is A. Clever, clever. So it becomes clever, cleverer, cleverest. In every other context, we need to form the comparative and superlative degrees of words which have more than one syllable with the addition of more and most. A second common error is the omission of the definite article the in the superlative form. For example, very often we hear people saying Russia is biggest country. That is a wrong construction. It must have, the superlative must have the addition of the definite article the. So it is Russia is the biggest country. She is most hardworking student in the class is wrong. It should be she is the most hardworking student in the class. Now this rule also has an exception. In the case of adjectives that are preceded by the possessive pronoun or the noun in the possessive case, we can continue to, we cannot actually use the definite article the. For example, when you say, this is my oldest dress, you'll notice the possessive pronoun my there, because the word or the adjective oldest is preceded by the possessive pronoun my, you do not use the definite article the in it. So this is my oldest dress. You do not say this is the my oldest dress or this is the oldest dress. No, that would be wrong. The correct way of saying that is this is my oldest dress. Reading is her greatest passion. The pronoun, possessive pronoun her, which comes before the superlative form of greatest. Similarly, you have here in the third sentence a noun in the possessive case. The citizens are a country's best resource. Country is a noun and it is in the possessive case here, countries of the country. Okay, and the superlative form best need not or cannot take the definite article the along with it. So it becomes the citizens are a country's best resource. Another common error is the use of the double comparative or superlative. Look at the first sentence here. It is more easier to preach than to practice. You notice that we've used the comparative form of the word or the adjective easy. It is easier. So we cannot add a further word and make it more easier. That is a wrong construction. The use of the double comparative is an error, and the correct way to write that sentence is it is easier to preach than to practice. This holds good for the superlative degree too. When we have already used an adjective in its superlative form, we cannot add a further most to it. So the correct sentence, when we say the Amazon is the most largest river, it is a case of double superlative, most and largest. The correct sentence is the Amazon is the largest river. Of course, in this context, one can remember the most famous example of a double superlative, the one used by William Shakespeare himself in his play Julius Caesar, where you have Mark Antony's famous speech, during which he says this line, "This was the most unkindest cut of all." You have the double superlative, most and unkindest together. But when it is someone like Shakespeare, well, we make an exception. A fourth error would be the use of two different degrees of comparison when we refer to the same entity, the same person or the same person, place, or the same thing. For example, in this sentence, it is the biggest and old tree in our garden. You notice that there are two kinds of adjectives used to describe the tree. You have the biggest and old. One is in the superlative and the other is in the positive degree of comparison. Now that is erratic, and we need to say this is the biggest and oldest tree in our garden. The definite article the there is used for biggest and oldest, since both of them refer to the same tree. So it is the biggest and oldest tree in our garden. So that is the correct way of writing the sentence. Of course, if you want to convey the other sense that, the tree is a very old one, it need not be the oldest, it is an old tree, and then it happens to be the biggest. Then you can say, this old tree is the biggest tree in our garden, if that is a sense to be conveyed. But if you want to convey the idea that it is the biggest and the oldest, then it should be written in the form, it is the biggest and oldest tree in our garden. In other words, you cannot use two different degrees of comparison to refer to the same entity in a sentence. The wrong order of adjectives is another error that is commonly made. We might have in the same sentence some adjective that has the ER or EST form for the comparative and the superlative, and another adjective which would probably be a bisyllabic or an adjective with more syllables than two, and therefore it would take the form more and most to form its comparative and superlative degrees. Now, in such sentences, we must always write the regular adjective first, and then the irregular or the monosyllabic adjective first, and then the bigger adjective, the one that takes more or most along with it in the second position. So, a sentence like, she is more talented and stronger than her brother is wrong, because we need to put stronger in the initial position and more talented in the second position. So she is stronger and more talented is the right way of putting it. This is the most powerful and longest speech made by the president is to be written correctly as this is the longest and most powerful speech made by the president. Unequal comparisons would be another major area of errors with regard to the degrees of comparison. Look at the first sentence here. The days of winter are shorter than summer. What are the two things being compared here? The days of winter, and then you have summer. That is an unequal comparison. The comparison should be between the days of winter and the days of summer. So we need to rewrite that wrong sentence in this way. The days of winter are shorter than those of summer. The next example, the vision of an eagle is sharper than a human being. You notice that in this sentence you have an unequal comparison. The vision of an eagle on the one side and a human being on the other side. What do we need to do? We need to compare the vision of an eagle with the vision of a human being, not a human being, with the vision of a human being. Therefore, we need to rewrite the sentence like this. The vision of an eagle is sharper than that of a human being. So when you make comparisons, make sure that there is equality, that you're comparing equal things and not unequal entities. Entities that belong to the same category and not entities that belong to different categories. So these are some of the common errors that crop up when we use the different degrees of comparison. As I have said earlier, keep practicing and look out for these commonly made errors and make sure that you do not repeat these mistakes.